Hello, dear friends. What a blessing to be with you this morning. Today we are here together with another chapter from the book Calmness by the Spirit, Emmanuel, through the blessed mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. And here we are together to talk about family connections. This chapter is dense, but is a beautiful reminder to you and I that everything happens for a reason, and wherever we reincarnated on the earth in this lifetime is the place where you and I are expected to be, and with the duties, responsibilities, and rights that we have towards and for one another. So this is what Emmanuel will tell us this morning about family connections. He says, as much as possible, make an effort, a real effort, to live in harmony with the relatives who seem less in tune with your view. On the physical plane, we are not linked to anyone in the ties of consanguinity without a just reason for being. Let's end our quote for today. How many of us during this planetary transition, with the difficulties and challenges we've had, have we found ourselves wondering, why am I here on this family? Especially with the amplification of our ability to know and communicate in ways that aren't in person, share our views in a more disembodied way where you can just go in and type or share, like, subscribe. A lot of differences have come to the surface with our family members and friends. And he says here, as much as possible, make an effort, but not only an effort, he says, a true, real effort, to live in harmony with those who seem less attuned with our views. The beauty of where we are today on the earth, and if you look around the universe, is diversity. There's diversity of life, diversity of opinions. We all look different. We all have different experiences. We all have different past lives, and we are here together. And our views may not be the same, because he's saying nobody is tied to us in the bloodly ties without a reason. So he's going to elaborate on the reasons why we come together on this earth, so that we can know of this reason, and then it will give us a sense of inner calmness. Emmanuel continues, those who harbor, quote, those who harbor hatred and aversion, when desirous of improvement, are induced by the benefactors of a sublimated life to reincarnate together in order to put an end to the flames of discord that torment their intimate life through common trials. If the purpose of this or that family member seems to you to be clearly opposed to the higher ideals that you embrace, bless them with your best thoughts and do not block your step in the path of the experiences that are needed, unquote, for now. So let's dwell on the fact that those who harbor hatred and aversion, when we desire our own improvements, are induced by the benefactors of the higher life to reincarnate together. And when we reincarnate together with people who may in the past have harbored hatred and aversion towards us, and vice versa. Remember, we're not victims. We also have chosen our actions and thoughts and ideas. We have molded them in a certain way, hopefully towards the good, as Emmanuel reminds us in the book For Life. But then we are induced to reincarnate together, so that we can do what? If you find yourselves reincarnated with those who you still feel that you're not attuned with, it says to put an end to the flames of discord. So if our lives today feel like there's flames of discord everywhere tormenting us in our common trials as families, and he's talking about here family in the terms of bloodly ties, your parents, your relatives, your cousins, your brothers and sisters. He says, put an end to the flames. As much as you have the rights to think and do the things you do, to the extent that your rights don't infringe on the rights of others and don't hurt others, they also have the right to their opinions, actions, and ideas as well. But remember, we are fulfilling the law of society. And as in the law of society, we learn in the Spirit's book that we are all interconnected, that nobody can do everything alone, and we come together in order to progress with one another and for one another. So if you find yourself, dear friend, in conflict with your loved ones, Emmanuel is saying there's a reason for you all coming together. And of course, it's always much easier for us to sit here with a cup of coffee, or remember, when you're studying, you want to have your water with you. The spirits can magnetize the water and give you the molecules you need for your improved health and well-being. But if we find ourselves in this conflict, we have to stop and say, perhaps I have had something to do with the current state of affairs of my family. Not only my behavior in this life may contribute to the discord and disorganization, but also in past lives. And he's going to even elaborate even more. He's going to go one step deeper. It's a longer chapter than we've dealt with before, but it's worth talking about because it's about all of us came through someone. We didn't spontaneously appear on the earth. We had mothers and fathers who had to come together, and their mothers and fathers had to come together. In whichever way and form nature and technology allow us to be conceived these days, and someone had to take care of us. Some of us are not able to grow with our family of origin, and we are lovingly accepted by another family who lovingly taking care of us. So we all have something to learn from this chapter because we all have some family ties with one another. He says here, quote, "Do not despise your parents or your children for being disoriented or sick, because perhaps you have been in existences that have already passed the direct or indirect cause of the imbalances or illnesses that present themselves today. Maybe we were the reason why today they're suffering the trials they're experiencing now." He will continue, quote, "On many occasions, you will have been born in consanguinity with rude and at times cruel relatives, solely because you love them, in order to assist them in the necessary transformation with your demonstrations of tolerance and patience, devotion and humility," unquote. So not only perhaps we had a role to play in the current experience due to our previous actions, we're the direct or the indirect causes of the imbalances. And remember, when our minds are imbalances during the actions and the guilty state that we might find ourselves in the afterlife, those can be imprinted in our spiritual form, where the memories are retained, and then that spiritual form can, depending on how we live, be experienced in our physical bodies, or in the book Evolution in Two Worlds by Andrea Luiz, which we have already studied in the past. Remember, the Spiritist doctrine is cumulative. Every day we learn, we add, and it makes sense. And it is consistent with Kardec's teachings as well. But some of us are born in certain families with difficulties because we love them. I'll give you an example. In the book Nosso Lar, we learned that Andrea Luiz's moms lived in a different colony, in a higher level colony than he is, even in Nosso Lar. And then we learned that the reincarnatory plan is for her to return to the earth and receive her previous husband, who committed adultery with her and is now entangled, was then entangled in the lower zones with his mistresses. And Andrea Luiz is like surprised by her abnegation. And there are times when people will be born with cruel relatives or difficult relatives, or relatives, again, we're trying to tame the flames of discord. And Andrea Luiz's moms, lovingly, because she loves them, she's there to assist her husband in the previous life, and the mistress is as her child or children. So then now that she can help them by showing tolerance and patience, devotion and humility. And all of those parties, and Lewis tell us, we'll learn to love one another in different ways, because there are many manifestations of love that we are yet to experience, and when we live in the flesh as well. He will continue, if after countless sacrifices in favor of certain relatives, and this often happens between parents and children, you notice in your heart that your conscience recognizes itself fully settled with them. And without these family members, after a long time living together, showing the slightest sign of renewal for the good, what do? Emmanuel says, let them follow the road that best suits them, the way they are, because the laws of life do not force you to die little by little on the pretext of helping those who refuse your love. And here we have the fragile, tenuous balancing of knowing when you can help and when you can. Now, he first starts saying, if after countless sacrifices in favor of those relatives. So he first says to you and I, do as much as you can to help those relatives. But then if over time you recognize that you've done what you could, let them be the way they are, because they're refusing our love. We're not trying and just letting them be. We try first, countless sacrifices in favor of certain relatives. So we need to try, because let's go back to the beginning of the message. We came together, perhaps because of the aversion and hatred. We were induced to reincarnate together to tame the flames of discord. So therefore, we have to tame or attempt to tame the flames of discord first, to the countless sacrifice, and then we can say, I did all I could. And who can actually say you did all you could? But we also have to respect folks, because they are in their path. You and I are on our path. Now it's going to give us a very interesting account of children when they die young. Of course, if they're children, they're going to die young. But if children die, he will say, quote, a tender and unforgettable child who returns to the hereafter in the early days of childhood is almost always a heart deeply dedicated to your spiritual progress, and has only returned to your domestic life in order to wake you up to the realities of the soul, through of longing and affection, unquote. So if you know someone or you yourself experienced the loss of a child, Emmanuel is saying here, they return to you, and they had almost always a heart deeply dedicated to your progress. Those experiences, those difficult experiences, we're not going to remove the difficulty. It doesn't become easy to lose someone you love just because you know of spiritism. But he says here, they have only returned to your domestic life in order to wake you up to the realities of the soul. Many of us are still entrenched in the physical realities of this existence, but we are more than our physical bodies, even though our obsession of our physical bodies is entrenched in our societal values of things that are not important to everybody. But then slowly but surely, as generations come, as decades go by, we learn what is really important. And through longing and affection, we can be waking up to the ties of love that unite us with our loved ones here in the beyond, and most importantly with God, whose love sustains and is the glue of the universe, as Leon Denis tells us in the book After Death. And he will say here, he will briefly talk about when you assume a commitment with someone, let's say a marriage or a partnership, and he will say, if you do not have the strength to carry out the commitments that you assume to a person, with whom you share the joys of feelings. Never abandon the child or children have been born at such union. So if you are a parent and you have been unable to sustain a marriage and the commitment or the partnership, they say don't abandon the child. The child doesn't have anything to do with that inability of continuing carrying out the commitments, because sometimes the circumstances are difficult. What does he say we should do? He says, educate and re-educate the little ones under your responsibility, while in a tender childhood, easily adaptable to the principles of a higher nature. So if these children are still young, you go there and educate them. Wake them up to the realities of the soul, of this necessary renewal from our past lives experiences. Today we are here to tame those flames of discord. Some of us reincarnate for the love of our loved ones, so we can support and loving them through humility, devotion, patience, and tolerance. Well, what if they are older, he says here, but before family members raised and they are now in a condition of adult, respect their freedom to walk in the world according to their own choices, because not everyone can walk the same path towards union with God. So this is a very deep chapter, very dense. The first talks about why we came together, the importance of living in harmony with our loved ones, and knowing what we know here, the importance of tending to our family connections can bring you inner peace, can give you that ability to say, I tried the best I could. All of those countless sacrifices I've made, true sacrifices, the self-awareness of knowing and what it is that you came here to do. If you find yourself in difficulty situations with your family members, perhaps it's because you need to put an end to the flames of discord that you've been feeding throughout millennia of reincarnating together. Sometimes we are the cause of the imbalances we observe in our loved ones, and that's why we came together. Some of the times we are lovingly returning with them so that we can give an example, demonstrate tolerance, patience, devotion, and humility. And then we need to make those sacrifices towards our family members, our children and parents. And then we're talking about when we lose someone in a younger, tender age, because it may be that we need to wake up to the realities of this. So, and then if those ties and those commitments don't work up, we need to tend to the fruits of those relationships in the forms of children. We go there and we educate them while they're still able to absorb the true realities of being on the earth. That we are here to love and serve one another and to fulfill the will of God for us. Dear friends, thank you so very much for joining me today. And that's all we have for this morning from the book Calmness by the Spirit Emmanuel. My name is Sheyne Martin. I'm broadcasting from the Spirit Society of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia, where we have translated and revised this message for you. And we are sharing the good news of the Christ in our own YouTube and social media pages, as well as Kardec Radio, so that you can benefit from these teachings as well. Let's continue to pray that the good spirits strengthen us in the path of sharing the good news and translating and revising many more topics for you so we can share and we can live a better life while on this earth. May you stay well. May you stay safe. Remember, love one another by serving one another. And until next time, many, many blessings.